Hello and good morning, everyone. Okay, so let me first of all log in into the org. Hmm, 208 batch. So in the last lecture, we have seen what exactly is a list collection, what are the different methods of a list collection. And we have written this sample program where we try to write down the different functions, and thereby we also understand what are the different functionalities of every one of them. All right. Now I was talking about one of a program that we have wrote in the past. What was that program for? So I told you that, see, whenever we wanted to perform any DML operations, now DML stands for data manipulation language, and uh, we are about to learn that in the coming days. Like that's actually an upcoming topic, but we at least know how we can use one of the DML statement called insert. So whenever we use any DML statement, we have this one governor limit over there. There's one governor limit that you could maximum use 150 DML statements inside a program. And using one DML statement, you could perform whatever the operation you are performing. Like if you are performing an insert operation, or maybe if you are performing an update operation, or delete operation, undelete operation, merge operation, upsert operation. So whatever the kind of operation you are performing with the DMLs, maximum you could perform it on 10,000 records, not more than that. So these are the two important governor limits that we should always remember. So in the last session, I was discussing about like whenever we are using a DML statement, we have a governor limit which cannot be bypassed in any case. And that governor limit is we can maximum use 150 DML statements, not more than that. That means if I wanted to insert 200 records, if I wanted to insert 200 records, if I'm using insert statement for every one of them, one record, for inserting one record, one insert, for inserting second record, second insert. And similarly, if I'm using one insert statement to insert one record at a time, and if I wanted to insert 200, I am obviously going to require 200 insert statements. Well, if I follow that process, but certainly this is not the good one. It's not the best practice. So I talked to you that we would never give. This is a real time practice. This is one of the best practice. This is one of the very best practice. And you have to write it down. You have to write it down. There are some of the best practices of doing in Apex programming. There are some of the best practices of doing Apex programming. We always have to follow them. We always have to follow them. So one of the best practice is never give any DML statement inside a loop. Never give any DML statement inside a loop. Also never give any query. You are also going to learn in the upcoming days, you are also going to learn SOQL. Salesforce object query language. What is the purpose of that would be discussed in the same. But, but you should never give any SQL, or rather a DML. You should never give them inside a loop. They are always excluded out of the loop. Then how I'm going to insert that much of the record, that we are going to learn with this topic called as bulkification. And whenever we are trying to do the bulkification, the collection plays a very, very, very important role. Without collection, you cannot do the bulkification. I would just try to explain you with an example, and then we're going to take this program. Okay, you go to the shopping mall. All right, you go to the shopping mall. DMart is one of popular mall. I mean, these days everybody goes to DMall for their monthly groceries and everything. All right. First time, see, I went to Goa. I guess before pandemic. I mean, 2 years back pandemic. So that was somewhere around like 4 year back, or maybe five. I don't remember exactly. And I drive to Goa. Is that was a wonderful tour. I'm absolutely stunning. So, but it's very long. Like it's almost 1,000 kilometer. You cannot drive for in a single run. It's not possible. So I decided to break my journey in Kolhapur. So my sister-in-law used to stay over there with her husband. So we decided to, when I at least reached Kolhapur. Even Kolhapur was also very long, somewhere around, I guess, 800 kilometers. So we started early in the morning from Nagpur, and then I reached to Kolhapur. But that time I was badly tired. So, I mean, we were planning to immediately go to Goa next day, but then I said no. It's almost difficult for me to drive in the next day because even though I started early in the morning, I reached over there somewhere around 2 in the night. So I said let's take a rest for one day, and then we're going to drive for the Goa. And from Kolhapur to Goa, it's absolutely stunning. I'm telling you that. The Bangalore Express Highway, and then you have to leave the Bangalore Express Highway after maybe like 100 kilometers, and then that road which you take to go to Panji, you don't feel like you're in India. So first time, that was like the first time when I visited DMart. It was not in Nagpur that time, but it was in there in Kolhapur. I said, "Oh my God, that's very prominent kind of thing." So DMart is like really good. All right, मैं थोड़ा सा अलग चला गया. So you go to DMart or maybe in any another shopping mall. So what do you usually do? How you shop over there? You take a cart with you, right? As soon as you would enter, you always take a cart with you. So by the way, this is your cart. All right, this is your cart. And then whatever you want, whatever a grocery item, any item, whatever you want, you put everything inside this cart, isn't it? You don't do like you take single item, you go to the billing section, you bill out for that, and then you come back and you pick up another thing and you go to the bill section. No, it's you. Usually nobody would actually do in shopping like this. So what you do, you take every item, whatever you want, you put up into the cart. You put up everything into the cart, that trolley or the basket, whatever. And then once you have been collected with every one of them, whatever you wanted, and we usually do shopping beyond the we need. That is what is a process. It's a psychological thing. If you go over there and you have decided to pick up the things only you wanted, but then when you visited over there, and especially if you are with kids, you are going to shop a little more, not a little, a lot more. Anyways, so you put up everything inside this cart, and then you go to the billing section, and then you bill for the complete items as a whole. There's only one bill, which consists of all those items that you have picked, isn't it? Now, the same way I'm explaining you, same way we are going to do something. We are not going to insert individual records at a time. We are not going to. pay the bill for individual items that we have paid. Rather, we would collect them inside a card, and that card in this case would be a list collection. Will be a list collection. Now let me go to the Salesforce. Let me go to the Salesforce. Yeah. So let me go to the Salesforce and try to explain you everything. What is the process of bulkification, which is considered to be the most important, the most important use of your collection. So I would be creating a class. I would be creating a class. Let's consider what is my use case. My use case is to insert 500 hiring manager records. If you try to insert with the way you learned in the past, it's not going to possible because after 150 DML, after like if you would create a loop of 0 to 499 or maybe 1 to 500, whatever, and inside in the loop, if you have given the insert statement. So after 150, it is going to throw you an error. After 150, it would going to throw you an error that system not limit exception, too many DML statements 151, right? So this cannot be done in the conventional way. So we must try something else, and that is right now what you are going to learn is the standard way of inserting records in bulk, not the one what we have learned that time. That time my intention was to show you like we can insert, we can update the data, we can delete the data, we can undelete the data from programming. And why? Because if ever you wanted to do this in a bulk amount, so going with user interface is not a good choice. You have to do this with them. So my intention that time was to make you aware about one thing that you could even do a DMLs from programs, and you just don't have a restriction to do it every time from the user interface. But that the way which we have learned in the past was not the standard. Today, you are actually going to learn this, right? So I would be creating a class with this name. So let me go to developer console, go with new Apex class, and with this name, share utility, I'm creating a class which would perform this bulk insertion. So this is my use case. This is my use case, and for this use case, I have created a class with this name, right? Sure. Now, inside in this class, I'm creating a method, and that method would contain the whole business logic to perform the insertion of 500 hiring manager records. All right. So I would be creating a method for this. So method would also have the access specifier public, and I'm making this method as a static method so that I could call it directly just by giving the name of class name dot method name. That is what is an advantage. That is the advantage of making a method as a static method. And because it doesn't returns anything to the calling environment. It doesn't returns anything to the calling environment. That means it's a procedure. Although we call this method is a generalized name, although, but you should not forget that any such of the method that doesn't returns anything to the calling environment. Return type is void. Method is called to be a procedure. If it returns something, it's a function, by the way. All right. So the name of the method is create bulk HR records. This is the name of the method. This is the name of the method handle. So here, here. So what I wanted to do, see, my code is like this. If I would try it like this, integer, let's say counter equals to 1. And then counter is let's say less than or equals to 108, not 20. I should it's 500. And then counter plus plus counter plus plus. So if I would try it like this, And here inside in the loop, I'm going to create the object of hiring manager. So I'll go to the hiring manager, take the API name for that application uh, interface. The API name is the name of that object, that field onto the database. In the programming, we would also take it. You always take it. So if I would take this, like, this is, I'm just preparing an object of this class. Every object is a class. Hiring manager, let's say HR equals to new hiring manager, and make this as a default. All right. And then with this HR, I would be creating, with this HR, I would be creating the record. So let me create the record, let's say Apex HR, and then the value of the counter I'm going to be get appended is this, plus the value of counter, plus the value. So it would be like HR1, HR2, HR3, something like that. And then HR dot, maybe the contact number. Let me give the value of contact number as well. So HR dot, the contact number. If you give any values, 99 something. And then HR dot, let's say location. Location is a pick list. So the value which you are giving over here must present inside a pick list. You cannot give anything apart from that. And then HR dot, HR email ID, right? Apex dash HR dash, let me give a space, append the value of counter plus at the rate. All right, see. Now, once you have, like, you have created the record. Now, if you try to insert that, if you try to insert, and see, this is what I'm doing a wrong thing. I'm actually giving one DML statement, but I'm giving this inside a loop. So this is what I'm committing a wrong practice, right? So what is going to be happen in this case? First record is getting created. That first record would be inserted. Then, because counter value is 1, and 1 is less than 100, 500. And then counter plus plus. Counter is going to be get incremented by 1. So the next value of counter would be 2. Condition is going to be get checked. 2 is less than 500. Value is true. So it would come again inside the loop, create a record object, and then with respect to that object, it would create the second record. And this would happen. This would happen for next 150 times. Every record is trying to be get committed. So you have given insert statement, a DML statement inside a loop. It's going to work for next 150 times. But what happens after that? As and when the counter goes 151, so because you cannot use more than 150 DML statement. So in this case, when I would try to execute this, I'm expected to get the error as system.dml exceptions. All right, let me show you that. So I've created char utility dot create. So this is what I have. This is the method. Let's see what happens when you try to execute this. System.dml exception. Although it is right for email address. Email address value is wrong. Okay. It cannot be like this. ऐसा तो नहीं है. चलो plus counter. ठीक है. There's a system validation rule which is making it wrong. You cannot have spaces in between. This is a system validation rule. Let me now try to save this. Let's now execute this. All right. So now it's performing to insert. देखो, इसलिए उसको समय लगा. while it was performing to validate everything. And now because you're trying to insert 150, more than 150 DML, it has given you this error. It has given you this error. System.limit exception in too many DML statements, 150. All right. So what is the best practice to do this? Or are we supposed to insert only 150 records at a time? Is this a restriction? Absolutely not. You're just doing it wrong. You're just doing it wrong. This has to be done in a different way. Now, what is that way? What is that way? Never give a DML, any DML, inside the loop. Inside the loop, never give. So how to do this? Let me show you that. So what I'm going to do in this case, like what we were trying to insert every record. Like आपने एक record, एक item लिया और आप build करने चले गए. फिर आपने उसको बिल कर दिया, फिर वापस आया, दूसरा आइटम लिया, उसका बिल कर दिया. So this was the practice you were following. Now I'll tell you the another way. Another way is to go with a cart. A cart रख लो. So now that cart would be your list collection. So I'm defining a list collection of hiring manager. Hiring manager. That means all of the records, see, if I would define a list of integer, that means all of the records inside the collection would be of type integer. If I would define a list of string, means all of the records inside that collection would be of the data type as string. Similarly, you can also define list of objects. I told you this in the beginning. This is what I'm doing. List of hiring manager. That means every record inside the collection would be a hiring manager record. If I would define, let's say, list of account, means every record inside in this collection is of data type as an account. It's an account record. It's a case record, something like that. Let me give any name for that. So let's say LST HR records. LST HR records equals to new. Let me just copy this. New. All right. So what I did, I just have defined a list collection. I have defined a list collection. Okay. I just have defined nothing else. I just have created one list collection. Excuse me. Guys, please remain on the call. I mean, I have something I have to go to. Just give me 5 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes, I'm pausing this recording, but you guys please stay on that. Yes. So I have defined one of the list collection, right? Now see what I would be doing inside the loop. Instead of inserting each record at a time, I would be going with this. What? I would rather add it to the collection, right? So this is my collection name. And to add any element, we learn a method called as add. So I would be adding every record. I mean, instead of inserting it one record at a time. So I have started adding records inside the collection. Collection name dot method. Method is add all, clear. Right? You have learned that. The previous lecture we learned how many different methods the collection have. So what is happening right now? You created one record. You picked out something from the shelf, and then you have added this to collection. You added it to the cart. I mean, after adding that record, first record, you go to the second record. You created the second record. You add it into the collection. So this way, you have added all of the 500 records to the cart, to the collection. You have added 500 records to the collection, one record at a time, and then you added this loop would be this loop would be iterated for next 500 times. So one by one, you have added all 500 records to the collection. Now, once the loop is being terminated, once the loop is terminated, beyond the loop, once all 500, once all of the 500 records, they are inside the collection. See, previously what I was doing, I was inserting every record at a time. But now, instead of inserting each record at a time, I would perform, see this, insert. I would perform insert. Of course, insert. I would perform an insert, but I would not be inserting every record. Rather, I would be inserting the whole collection. I would be inserting whole collection. I would be inserting whole collection. So this is the way of doing bulkification. You add everything inside the collection. You add everything inside the collection and then insert the whole collection, update the whole collection, delete the whole collection. So we never do any DML directly onto the records. Rather, we do it always on the collection. Acha, if this has been understood, let me tell you one another big best practice, which we are going to follow every time. Every time, whenever we would perform any operation with collection, whenever, listen this very carefully, whenever we would perform any operation with the collection, like in this case, what you are attempting to insert. You are attempting to insert the collection. You could attempt anything. You are going to learn other operations as well in the coming programs. Maybe you could try to update something. You could try to delete something, the whole data, and then data is present inside a collection. So whenever, and this is what I am telling you, is not just the case with list collection. There are three types of collection: list, set, and map. So this principle, this rule, this best practice, what I'm telling you right now, is applicable to all of them, by the way. So whenever you are trying to perform anything with a collection, so before doing that insert, update, whatever, we should always check for something to avoid the null pointer exception. There's an error that comes. If this collection is empty, there is possibility to generate an error called as null pointer exception. So to avoid that null pointer exception, I'm going to do this every time. Every time. This is not written in any of the book, all right? But this is a usual best practice that every developer would follow if he's a good programmer. We always check for whether the collection is not empty. You have learned a method called isEmpty. If right, go back and learn it if you haven't. There's a method I have told you. There's a method called as isEmpty. Is empty, right? This would return me true if the collection is empty. I'm going to make a use of this method, but along with a not operator. Not, this is not. Exclamation mark that is present on the number key 1. Shift 1 would give you this symbol. Symbol in English is called as exclamation mark. Programming it is called as not operator. Not of what? Not of this collection. Not of this collection dot is empty. Is empty. So this is as good as asking a question. Is this collection is empty? Is this collection is empty? Is this collection is empty? If the collection is not empty, if the collection is not empty, then and then only perform insert operation. So I'm bringing this over here. Then and then perform insert operation. Otherwise, don't attempt to insert, because if you would try to insert an empty collection, it's going to throw you an error called null pointer exception. So to avoid that to be happen, in this case, we know that we are creating a record. I understand. You are saying, sir, in this case, it's never possible to generate this. I understand. I'm saying, yes, I'm accepting that. But I'm still saying that whenever, see, sometime it might also happen. Let's consider the case of integration. In the coming days, you're also going to learn to write down those kind of program which would accept something from the external entities. There would be an external API. There would be an external system, external program from which data is receiving. and you don't have any idea whether the data is being received properly or not. But then you built up a mechanism where everything, whatever comes from the external source, is going to be get stored inside a collection. And then once that everything has been collected inside that collection, I would try to perform update, insert or something, whatever. In this case, we are absolutely sure कि हम तो खुद ही data generate कर रहे हैं boss. तो वो कैसे empty हो सकता है when I'm generating every record and I'm inserting this, I'm adding this to a collection. I understand every of your feeling, but I am projecting this for the future thing. हो सकता है आगे चल के you are going to build up a program in a way that it is going to receive something from the external source. Now, how could we know कि जो data आने वाला था वो आया कि नहीं आया? So that's why if the data has come and it has been stored, if the collection is not empty, then we attempt DML otherwise. So this is a best practice which we are going to follow every time. Whenever we would work on a collection, we always go with the best practice to check for the null pointer exception, to avoid the null pointer exception. All right. Now this program won't give you any error. It would not throw you any error. Right. Let me now save this program. Now save this program and I'll go to hiring manager object, by the way, and let me check it out. Okay, how many records right now it would have? So it have 261 records. That means if I would add 500 more to this, it would become 761 record, I guess, if I'm wrong about my maths. So this would give me 761 records, right? Let's try to attempt that. So I would be calling this method once again and I press this execute button, right? So this is what has happened. You don't have any system.debug. It's not going to print any. But if still you want, you can check the logs and you can find it out like how many records have been inserted. Right? You can just scroll it, scroll it, scroll it. And you scroll it to the end of this, and here you can see, see number of DML rows. How much rows you have inserted, how many records you have inserted? 500 out of 10,000. Out of 10,000, that means you could, with the word DML, you could insert 10,000, update 10,000. You have inserted 500 records. You have inserted 500 records, but how many DML statements have you used? You have used only one out of 150. So अगर इसके पहले कभी भी आपको ऐसा महसूस हुआ था कि यार ये तो 150 बहुत ही कम होती है और होना भी चाहिए था ऑफकोर्स, मैं कैसे इतना सारा डेटा इंसर्ट करूं, तो अब देख लो कि ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. यूजिंग वन डीएमएल यू कुड एटलीस्ट इंसर्ट 10,000 रिकॉर्ड्स, और 10,000 से ज्यादा है तो हम कुछ पढ़ने वाले हैं आगे चल के जिसका नाम है बैश प्रोग्राम. विद द बैश प्रोग्राम इवन मोर यू कैन अटेम्प्ट. कैसे हम देख लेंगे. So सिर्फ one DML statement I have used, but I was able to insert 500. I was even able to insert 10,000 records. मैं लूप को 10,000 टाइम चला के भी इंसर्ट कर सकता हूँ, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. You can attempt that if you wanted to do that. But that would be a big shot, so it would require certain significant amount of time to run. But this, yes, it is possible. मैंने वो भी attempt कर लिया है. So using one DML only you could insert 10,000. You don't require 10,000 DMLs for that. Using one DML you can insert 500. You won't require 500 DMLs for that. और वैसे भी आप नहीं कर सकते. From one more than 150 you cannot use. But actually you don't require that much, right? You don't require. So that is the process of bulkification we always do, and it's always being done with the help of a collection. Now, if I would go back, 261 records were there initially. After running this program, we have 761 records as expected. So this is what is the biggest advantage of collections. There are so many others as well, but this is the biggest advantage. You could achieve the process of bulkification, and this can be done only with the help of a collection. Otherwise, no otherwise. All right, that's all for today. You have any question, please unmute yourself to ask that. Yes, any questions? Any questions? All right. Thank you so much for joining. Have a good